Welcome to the February 26, 2017 Guitar Blog episode on diminished scale licks and runs. Now, probably you know this already, but in jazz, we've got some odd scales that we use that sound very inside and outside, and one of the most common jazz scales applied in all types and styles of jazz music is the diminished scale. Now, it's often referred to as the Octatonic Scale as well, and its structure is very unique because what it really is doing is taking 8 tones in the layout, which is obviously a rare occurrence in the world of all the 5-tone pentatonic scales and the 7-tone major and minor scales and modes. So what happens is in the diminished scale, we derive it out of 2 interlocking 4-tone diminished 7th chords, and it gives us this 8 separate tones layout, produces 8 tones with the 9th tone being the octave, and it's all separate degrees. And we also in there, and this is the reason why it's dissonant, we get these associated altered tones of an augmented 9th and 5th as well as a diminished 5th. So in the lesson, we're going to explore this whole diminished scale idea. We're going to look at some theory about it. We're going to have structure that we'll analyze, and we'll have a collection of some popular scale patterns on the neck. But what you really want to do, and the reason you came here, is you want to learn licks. So we've also got a good collection of diminished scale licks. And before we get started on all the licks and fun stuff, what we're going to do is a short theory lesson to help you really understand the structure and layout and the scale tones and degrees of diminished scale. And then we'll break it down with some neck patterns and get you going on some licks. All right, let's get going by understanding how the diminished scale operates, and we'll look through its tones and understand how it relates to tonic note of C. So getting started here, you can see on the music staff, I've set everything up going from the diminished scale across using C tonic, and then you can see we're up a whole step here, then a half step to an E flat, up another whole step to F, and then a half step to G flat, whole step to G sharp, and then a half step to A, whole step to B, and then half step relating back to the octave here. Now, one of the things that's really unique, of course, with this scale, the octatonic scale, is that it has 8 tones. So it's symmetrical, as you probably noticed as I was going through the degrees there. We have it moving as a whole step, and then we have a half step. And then we move a whole step, and then we have another half step, and it's just continuously moving in that same manner. So you have to understand that this is an important aspect of how the thing gets laid out on the guitar fingerboard, and it's not just a concept with the tones themselves. So remember, the guitar, of course, is very geometrical, it operates in patterns, and we have a very distinctive pattern here with this whole step, half step. Sometimes, of course, you'll see that written down as a tone and a semitone. So anyway, that's the breakdown. You can see what's happening there. We've got some color tones here that are operating minor third, distinguishing it as a minor sound, of course. And then we have our lowered 5th and our raised 5th, so diminished 5th, augmented 5th, and the other unique sound at the end here with this major 7 at the end. So very interesting scale. It's got a lot of options on how you can apply it and use it, and I think what we really need to do straight away is, now that we understand the theory, let's head to the guitar fingerboard and start working. But just before we hit to the studio and start going through our first idea, I want to give a pattern breakdown on the screen capture here for you so you can understand what this scale looks like, practice it a little bit, and then we can move on to doing our first ideas. So let's go to a scale pattern next. Our first diminished scale idea that we're going to be working with will be based off of the E diminished, and we're going to be jamming out on some sounds of E dominant chord. And you can tell, right away when you look at the alignment of tones, we have a little bit of an issue with dominant chords in diminished scale. So we have to watch a couple of tones there. One is the minor third, the other one is the major 7th. 2 tones that are out a half step from the functioning of a typical dominant 7th chord. Yet, you can still make this thing work, oddly enough. In jazz, we'll often play major 7s over top of a minor 7 in a chord harmony, and of course there's that jazz and blues color concept of major and minor thirds that kind of go hand in hand there as well. Now, when we look at the tonic for our E layout of diminished scale, we're going to be based off the 5th string on the 7th fret, and you can see how this setup is fairly in position. It's actually a very good diminished scale pattern to begin begin with when you're learning these shapes. So I would highly suggest starting by just going at the 7th fret and 5th string root, of course. This is a pattern 2 layout in terms of the Creative Guitar Studio curriculum. So we have a layout of the diminished scale set up in the middle of the neck, basically off 5th string. It's an excellent pattern. Begin by just playing through this pattern and get some technique with it, and then we're going to be heading next into the studio, and we're going to be playing through our initial guitar lick example for example number 1 that's going to put the diminished scale to use. So let's head to the studio and find out what this first guitar lick sounds like. Alright, so we're going to get into example number 1, and this is a run here that's operating off of a E vamp. You could probably tell that from the loop that I had going off in the background there. And what I want to start with, though, is just running through, in example 1A, I want to run through the scale pattern with you and just get you to understand how it's laid out on the neck. Now, this is going to be off of an E tone, 5th string, 7th fret E, and we're just walking up, going through the tones, tonic note E, F sharp, 2nd degree, the minor 3rd or augmented 9th for your 3rd tone. Then we have a perfect 4th, diminished 5th, augmented 5th, and then we move up into the major 6th, major 7th, the D sharp, and then the octave. And that brings us to our first octave point. After that, we do have some more tones. We're going to follow up on the 2nd string. So we'll be going from the 7th fret there, 7, 8, and 10. And then we're going to scoot back a position, and we're going to take up from the 6th fret on the 1st string. So that's going 6 and 8 and 9. It's got some great sound. So that's the pattern itself that we're going to be using for this particular guitar lick and run that we have. The lick and scale run is going to be following suit to track major 6, minor 3rd, and then we're going to be looking at it on the harmony of that dominant 7th chord there. Now, in starting off, what we're doing is coming in with some pickup notes, and we're running through on the 3rd string, 6, 9, and then coming around to this tone here. Now, that's kind of an outside tone because the chord is just E7, but that tone, it's like a minor 3rd, but it's acting a little bit more like a sharp 9. Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze. Okay, so that's going to be the first point where we're going to add in a sense of alteration to the sound. Then we just have this run that takes place from the 3rd string. It goes 6th fret, 9th fret, and then we're going to have 8 and 7 and 8 again on the 2nd string, and then 6 and 8 with a bend, coming back down to the 6 and then to the 7th fret. So that 7th fret tone that we're sort of pointing at there a lot, that's a unique tone too, because it's our F sharp there. So it's a major 2nd. It's like coloring up the chord with a natural 9, major 2nd tone. And then we have some cool, diminished shapes here. And they're back to back. So they're crawling across the neck there. 1st string, 9th fret, 2nd string, 8th, and then 9th fret, 3rd string. Bringing it down a half step. And then we're going to go off of that 9th fret, 3rd string. I'm just going to come up with a little riff there that's coming off that E tone using the major 6 there. That's that C sharp, The other tone that's in play there is that B flat. And that's going to be our flat 5. So, we had that diminished 5th there. So just kind of walking through it slowly again for you. On the pickup notes, and then those nice diminished. All right, so some really neat sounds going on in there. It's a nice introduction to what's happening with the E diminished scale. Get to know your pattern on the neck off of the 5th string root of E. have some fun with that. And then you can get into this lick here and try this run. It's all laid out for you in the handout under example 1A for the scale pattern and 1B for the guitar lick and scale run. So we'll take a short break, come back in a moment with another diminished scale idea. Smooth Jazz Chords introduces chord types that offer a very different sound from the chords that are used in almost every other style of music. The Smooth Jazz Chords video lesson is a two-part course that demonstrates chord types that are used in the smooth jazz style. These chords are often referred to as triad over bass note chords, and the lesson demonstrates these chord shapes as well as their use using both diagrams and example progressions. Smooth Jazz Chords is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com. The next idea that we're going to look at is going to be based off of the tonic of C. So our diminished scale will be placed at the 8th fret of the 6th string. We're going to do this rather extended version where we have coverage over the pattern number 4 scale layout as well as a little bit into pattern number 5. Now, of course, again, I'm using the pattern octave ideas that are based on the Creative Guitar Studio curriculum. If you remember the site and you're working through all the curriculum, then you're well aware of what's going on with the octave patterns on the neck. So these circled dots are all your C tones, and they're following the curriculum of the Creative Guitar Studio course in terms of my naming for them of pattern 4 down on this end and pattern number 5 going up on this end here. Now, in the C, as we had seen in our explanation of the scale at the start of the video, we do have the flat 3 of E flat and the flat 5, sharp 5 color, and of course that major 7. Now, what we're going to be doing in our second guitar lick and run idea that is we're going to be focusing on the dominant 7th sound again of C, but we're going to be trying to highlight nice and clear through both the flat 5 and the sharp 5. Now, you can come up with any kind of a riff that you prefer. You know, it sounds good to have some chromaticism in your riffs that you create for playing diminished scale over. It's interesting if they're kind of funky, if they're more staccato and broken sounding, that even helps a little bit more, because remember, we've got some really crazy sounds that are going on with this symmetrical scale shape. So keep all that in mind. Practice this scale pattern initially so you have a good idea on how this thing is set up on the neck. And when you're ready to go, let's move next to example number 2's guitar lick so you can understand how to put C diminished scale into action. All right, so we have a fun one here in example number 2. But before we get rolling along on it, I do want to cover the scale pattern. We're in C diminished scale. We're going to be using sort of a combined 2-octave layout of it. We're off the 8th fret here for this one, 6th string. We're going to be functioning off of pattern number 4 and pattern number 5 octave shapes if you're familiar with the Creative Guitar Studio curriculum. And how this is going to operate is we're going to start off there on the low string. We've got C, D, E flat. And then we're shifting up here to the F, the G flat, the G sharp, and the A. And then we're going to have a movement at that point where we're going to take the B natural on the 4th string and then get to our first octave. So we got... And at that point, we do have 2 more notes possible on that string. We have our D there, and we also have our E flat, but you know that E flat's also going to be available to us at the 8th fret of the 3rd string. So they're in unison there. You can kind of decide, you know, which one that you want to be using. After that, though, we have a whole step move up, and then we're going to move up again, half step, and then we're going to have another whole step. But at that point, you know, that note, that's a G sharp, by the way, on the 3rd string, 13th fret. That tone also has its unison located as well up here, the 9th fret, 2nd string. So you have kind of a choice there where you want to do those ones. After that, we're going to move up to the 10th fret, and then we're going to have 12 and then 13 for our 2nd octave. That's another C tone there, 13th fret, 2nd string. And you have an option there too of another C to go back over to on the 1st guitar string, you know, another unison idea. And then you have that D there, and if you want to keep going, you can, but, you know, I sort of ended the pattern on the page at that point. So, you know, work through that, get to know that pattern on the neck, understand how everything's laid out. You can make your decisions of where you want to have those unison tones on the 3rd string and 2nd string taking place for you, or if you want to leave them on the 4th string and 3rd string, it's up to you. But analyze the pattern, get it sorted out on the fingerboard, and let's get on to this guitar lick and this run here that we have in example 2B. Now, what's happening here is we're having a combining idea of the diminished scales flat 5 and sharp 5 altered tones. And, you know, again, it's got kind of this funky groove, and we're going through some symmetry of the scale here. We're starting off at the high D tone. And that's kind of an important element too, because, you know, I'm hitting a lot of these extended tones. The D is basically at like playing a C dominant 9. So that's what I'm hitting first. And then, you know, from there, I'm going through some of the symmetry of the scale, then doubling back like a sequence. So those are great shapes, really cool ideas to mess around with in the diminished scale. So I'm ripping it out there from the 1st string over down to the 4th guitar string, 8, 10, 11 to the 3rd string, carrying over from the 8th fret 3rd string, coming back to the 10th fret 2nd string, 11, 8 again, hitting into the 10th fret 4th string, and then I'm hitting the 8th fret a couple times there. And what's going to happen, that's the E flat, and then I'm going to do over in the 11th, but kind of tweak it, just kind of take it a little bit out of pitch. Just kind of, you know, coming close to G natural, which isn't even in the scale, but, you know, we have that G flat that we're on, and I'm kind of getting it a little out of pitch, just like, you know, sort of a blues player would do, you know. Just give it like kind of a tweak, you know. Give it kind of an interesting sound, you know, kind of push it outside, you know, get it outside of the realms of what's happening there. And, you know, the G is in the chord, you know, because I've got the chord, you know, centered around C dominant 7th, basically. So, you know, we're playing around with sounds here, you know, kind of coming inside, outside of the color of the chord of the moment. After that happens, though, we're going to start a new symmetrical idea. A little bit different rhythm there. We're coming in on the upbeat of, well, not really quite the upbeat, but the 2nd 16th of the beat of 2 on that 2nd measure. And we're just kind of dropping into this 9th fret tone that's found on the 5th string there. It's basically going to be your G flat tone there. So we have that flat 5 color, you know. Kind of an interesting note to end on. And we're just, again, taking advantage of these altered tones that we have. So that run, again, it's coming from 3rd string, 8th fret. Got the 11th fret as well, you know, that G flat. Pedaling off the 10th fret, 4th string into 8th fret there. Dropping down into the 4th string, 7th fret. Hitting that 10th fret, 4th string once again. That's that C tone right there. And then into the flat 5. So it's a really neat sound, and you can really tell now that we're using some of the symmetrical flavor. You know, so this is more sort of almost like the arpeggio itself that I'm running through here, but you can tell that as you mess around with the sound of the diminished, it's offering you such a bizarre and interesting color that you kind of get hooked on it, you know, when you first start practicing the thing, because it's just so different, you know. So anyway, so that wraps up part 1 of the lesson plan, and in part 2 on the members area, what we're going to be doing is exploring things a little bit further. I want to get into some different ideas for triad over bass note chords. I also want to look at some concepts for covering the dominant 7th altered 9th, you know, sharp 9. So, you know, I hope to see you next in the members area. There's lots of material there for you to get better at your guitar playing. There's tons of courses and hours of exercises and all kinds of stuff to really bust your chops and make you as best player as you possibly can. So hope to see you next in the members area. We're going to carry on with the diminished scale, more licks, more runs, more theory. It's going to be solid learning. Well, thanks for watching part 1 of the lesson. Be sure to sign up for a membership at creativeguitarstudio.com to watch part 2. In the second half of this video, we're going to be looking at some triad over bass note chords. We're going to be also checking out the dominant 7th sharp 9 chords, so you can learn more about how to cover unique dissonant chords, altered chords, that kind of thing. There's going to be more scale patterns and lots more information theoretically, so you really get to understand diminished scale. Plus, as a member, you can also have access to be able to download the handout for this video lesson. On top of that, there's many many other professionally presented guitar lessons on the site. You've got the complete beginner program, the intermediate program, which is excellent if you're past the beginner stage and you really need to solidify your playing to another level. There's also the advanced program material and all the electives like these guitar blog lessons. There's the masterclass series with PDF downloads and MP3 jam tracks. There's the quick lick series, which is a great way to learn a few guitar licks and understand better how things fit into key signatures with scale patterns. Literally, there are just dozens and dozens, hundreds of hours of video on the site. It's well worth it to become a member. I've been working on this material for 25 years to be able to bring it to you. So quit trying to wing it and make it up as you go along. I've got all this experience behind me. Let me help you to become a better guitar player. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with you next in the members area at creativeguitarstudio.com. Thanks for watching. Click here to subscribe to the Guitar Blog Update YouTube channel and never miss another video. Click here to sign up for your free membership to creativeguitarstudio.com. And if you take out a paid membership, you'll get premium content downloads of jam tracks, lesson handouts, and full access to all the members area video lessons.